Is less more? It's a question that's being asked more and more in our society today, as people who own many things are realizing the little satisfaction that comes from them, but also people asking if the things that they do own provide enough or give enough value for the sake of owning them, or if it drains or takes more from them in the end. So just want to share some insights that I've had from this. I think a good example of this and today is the Marie Kondo "Does it bring me joy?" of asking if things, whatever they are, or things that your time is taken from, if they bring you joy in the end, if that's worth keeping them or not. I think it's a good place to start. It's almost a little too self-centered sometimes because I feel like it's not necessarily all about you, right? Like there's some pictures on the wall here. They don't necessarily bring me joy. I like the frames, but my wife liked the pictures more than I did. So like, I think there's a little bit of self-centeredness that needs to be checked when considering that question. But overall, it brings me joy, and I know that my wife enjoys them, and so that brings me joy too. So I think that's a good place to start and kind of to challenge and see. And it's pretty wild because if you really do ask that question and go through things, you'll realize a lot of things do not bring you joy that you thought they did, or maybe you were kind of just going with the flow without thinking about it. Especially with clothing articles, I feel like that's pretty quick to go through. I mean, you can grab something and be like, man, I really haven't worn this in a long time, probably because it doesn't give you joy. And so, yeah, can you give it to someone else or move on from it? It's a good question. Another thing I was thinking about is, so I have chickens, and chickens are kind of I feel like they're kind of a trend right now, or people are going back to having chickens. And the thing that is always funny about them is people naming their chickens. And because like historically, at least the people I talk to in my church, they would not really name their chickens. I think there's a few that did, but not commonly would be, have their whole flock named necessarily, unless it's like a kid, who names it. But you just have chickens, they die pretty regularly with animals and stuff. You just get more, that kind of thing. Or if you needed, you had to raise a family, you'd have a lot of chickens, right? So right now we have 8 chickens and we all have them named. And it's kind of interesting because we have a better relationship with them because we've named them and we're so close to them, and we only have a few of them. Now, if I had 50 chickens, I'd be getting more out of them technically, right? Like I'd be getting more eggs. There's more that comes from that, and there's more responsibility. But the irony is, with having less, I get more satisfaction out of it because I'm able to form a deeper relationship with them and know them more and be more attached to them. So there's kind of an interesting irony there of having less brings more value, but that value isn't physical, which is, I think, kind of interesting. But yeah, it's another example where less could be more. But the downside to that is that if I lose a chicken, then I'm more devastated because I was way more attached to it. Where if I just had 50 chickens and they're all the same kind and I don't know anything specific about them really, well, I just lost one, no big deal. We'll just have another one be bred. So that's a definitely downside to it. Same thing could be with like clothing, right? If you have 5 shirts and one of your shirts gets a stain on it, you're going to be more devastated, or at least I am. You're going to be more devastated that this shirt has a stain on it. But at the same time, you don't have as many pieces, so you're not as attached. Well, that's the challenge, I guess. Trying to think what I'm trying to say there. It's a good challenge to make you not as attached to even the small pieces, right? Because that's kind of the trade-off is if you have less, you're more invested into it. So can you simultaneously fully appreciate it and love it because it's one of the few you own, but at the same time still realize it's just a material thing and let it go? That's a hard in between ground, but that's kind of the challenge of it, is having both of those fully simultaneously, being able to appreciate it, but also being able to let it go. Another example I had here, which was kind of interesting, was explore territory. So like, let's say you own a lot of land. Like, let's say you're a country like Russia, where you have tons of land, or Canada or the United States. There's definitely an asset to having a lot of land, and you could go into all the economic benefits of that, right? But for us, so like we own basically a half acre. I know almost every square inch of this property. Like, I know its potential, I know its capability. I'm intimately tied to it in that way. And so there's kind of the benefit of having less with that for this land perspective is kind of like with the chicken thing. You're able to know it more intimately, but also you're able to get the most out of it. Like, I'm gonna be able to develop it the most because I'm able to, like, have my energy focused towards it, and it's not too much. Same thing with like houses. I think are interesting with this too. Houses nowadays are almost all made to be many bedrooms, huge places. We have a small place here. It's 1 bed, 1 bath, under 1,000 square feet. And the pro of that is that we're able to, really do it up as we like. These walls these were all wood and not painted, and like no frames and everything. And, people do up their houses, but oftentimes with the modern day ones, you just have drywall, and then it's a color, and then that's kind of it. And some people do more furnishing to it, but that's kind of the pro of having less, is you're able to really customize it and put your energy and care into it and develop it. So I think that's kind of an interesting point as well. One thing I wanted to say was, I don't know if this happens to all people, but when we moved from an apartment to here, this little cottage that we're in, you realize how little you need. Like, right now we've been trying to get a propane tank for our gas stove. So we have I love cooking with gas, but the stove outlet that we have is for electric. So right now our stove is half gas, half electric. The oven's electric, but we're not able to use the stove part yet because we weren't able to get propane installed before winter. And we've been using this Instapot that we've had, and we've been using it for like all of our cooking. Some things we put in the oven, and we have a slow cooker too, like a crock pot. But yeah, it's been very humbling. It's like, do you even need a stove? Like, you could use other means to cook. Or like in the summer, I would just use my grill instead. And so, yeah, really interesting. That was a really interesting experience, because same thing, like when you move, you have a lot of things in boxes still. And yeah, like, you are starting to live and all your things are not unpacked. And sometimes for some people, for us, like, it takes a while to get everything unpacked. Like, it's not like you move in and next week, boom, everything's out. If that's you, congratulations, but that was not me. And yeah, it's super challenging because, like, here's all these things that I don't use or need, and yet they're mine in these boxes. And so I think that's kind of another picture. So yeah, hopefully there's some pros and cons. I mean, biasly, I think it's definitely more pros to have less, and just, yeah, being more intimately tied with what you have, having more of a connection to it. But then also with our consumerism, being able to give things away or get rid of things helps you not be attached to things as much as well. And like I said with the stain example, that's always going to be my, I don't know, kryptonite. But biggest challenge is, like, man, I put all this investment into this that I have, it got damaged. You got to be able to move on from it and maybe just buy one other thing to replace it. But it's an interesting challenge. So is less more? Let me know in the comments below. Have a great day.